Okay, welcome back everybody to part 2 of the lesson 7 video. We're working on example 3 and we're working on part B. A cosine function having an amplitude of 3 and a period of 720 degrees. And our goal is to come up with the equation. So y equals a, and this time it's cosine, right? So we're going to want to write cos and then bx. And we're trying to look for both a and b. So amplitude of 3, that means that our a value could be 3. Okay, and then we have cos, and we need to find b. Now b is found, as we discovered from the last example, by going 2 pi over the period. Okay, that's great if you're working in radians, but we're working in degrees. So equivalent to 2 pi would be 360 degrees over the period, and they tell us the period is 720, so let's put that in for our period. And so we have 360 degrees divided by 720, and that would work out to be 0.5 or 1/2. Okay, so then we can put that in for b, 1/2 x. All right, and I like to put brackets around that once we get more than just x inside the cos function. Okay, next we have a tangent function having a period of pi over 2. So this is a little outside what we're supposed to be doing, but they didn't mention amplitude, so we don't need to write an a, but they did mention period of pi over 2. For tan, the normal period is pi. So to figure out our b value, we would be going pi over our new period, pi over 2. Okay, and that should equal 2. But typically, you will not be tested on any transformations of the tan function, so don't worry so much about that question. All right, example number 4. Consider the partial graph shown. State the amplitude and period of the graph. Okay, so they're giving us a graph. All right, so amplitude is half the total range. So we're going from 3 to -3, so that's a range of 3. Well, we could figure it out by subtracting 3 minus -3 and then divide by 2, so that's going to be 6 over 2 equals 3 would be our amplitude. So amplitude equals 3. Okay, period is the length of one cycle. Best place to start, if you can, is from the y-axis. Okay, so this point here, and we keep following along until we start repeating our cycle. So not here, because if it was here, our cycle would look like this, okay, which we know it doesn't. So follow it along, and here it starts repeating itself. So from here to here would be the length of one of our periods. So let's see if we can figure out what that point is. It looks like this first tick mark is pi over 2. So that implies that each tick mark is pi over 2. So this would be 2 pi over 2, which equals pi. So there we go. That's our period. Period equals pi. All right, now we want to find the equation of the sine function. Okay, so we would go y equals a sine bx. A is going to be 3, our amplitude. And b, oh, we still have to figure b out. Let's go up here. B is going to be normal period of sine, 2 pi, divided by our new period, which is pi. The pi's would divide to equal 1, and we'd have 2 times 1, which is 2. So there we go. Our b value is 2. And there's our equation. Awesome. Let's take a look at the last example on the next page. Okay, so last example, example 5, looks like a bit of a real-life application situation. The graph represents the effect of tides on mean sea levels, which is like average sea level, over a 24-hour period. The graph has an equation of h of t equals a cos bt, where t is in hours. Okay, here we go, t, and this is in hours. And h is in height in meters. So this is height in meters. Okay, relative to the mean or average sea level. Determine the equation of the graph. All right, so if we're going to get the equation, first of all, they gave us what they want the equation to look like. They want us to call it a cosine function, which looks right because our peak is on the y-axis. Okay, so we need a, or the amplitude, and we need our period. which then after that we find our B value. Remember, period and B, not exactly the same thing, but B can be found from the period and period can be found from B. Okay, so let's do amplitude. So our total range would be from -4 to 4, which is a total range of 8. Half of that, divided by 2, would be our amplitude. So our amplitude is 4. Okay, period. And you get that, let me show you kind of a longer way. You go the max minus the min divided by 2, okay, which gives you 4. All right, period. Let's go from the y-axis right here, follow it through until you reach 1 cycle. So this, whatever this is, would be what our period is. Okay, so let's figure out what that is. Looks like this first tick mark is being called 3, so that would imply that each tick mark would equal 3. So 3, then 6, 9, next one would be 12, and there's our period, 12. Okay, now we get our B value by taking our normal period. Now they didn't really say whether we're in degrees or radians, so usually the fallback thing is to go to radians, so 2 pi over our period, which is 12, and that can reduce, 2 goes into 12 6 times, reduce to pi over 6. All right, let's put that into our equation. A, amplitude, turned out to be 4, cos, and B was pi over 6, and then we have t as our independent variable. And there we go. Okay, so we should be able to work with the sine and the cosine function and our A and B values related to amplitude and period. Okay, good luck with that, and we're going to continue with lesson 8 in the next video.